Hey there, I wanted to share with you my top 5 tips of when people talk to me about going to Disney. They ask me, what is my best advice since we go all the time? So I wanted to share those top 5 things with you today, and then I can refer people back to this video. So let's start off. You have to pick your park days. And when you're picking your park days and making your park reservations, I highly recommend thinking about the days that you're going to be there, what you want to accomplish, and then picking your days based off of that. That is also to say, think about when you're arriving, and everybody has, like, if you arrive on the weekend, everybody's super excited, and the first park that they always want to hit is Magic Kingdom. Guilty, that's where I want to go first too. But I know if we're arriving on the weekend that we shouldn't go to Magic Kingdom on Monday. I love Magic Kingdom Mondays, but everybody does the same thing, and so it tends to be more crowded in Magic Kingdom on Mondays. So I'd highly recommend, if you can hold off, going to Magic Kingdom even Wednesday or Thursday, because that makes it feels like the crowds are less. You can check crowd calendars if you'd like, but that's definitely one of the things that I would say. So pick your days wisely. Make sure once you buy your tickets or you have your passes that you do plan out your park days, because parks do sell out in advance, especially if you're going on days that are popular, like spring break days. Recently it's been really busy and sold out. Then like around holidays, so any of the other holidays, Martin Luther King weekend, Easter, days when students are off from school, typically when people can travel and go there when they've got long weekends. Most people have long weekends, and so if you can travel when it's not a busy time or not a holiday, then you should see lower crowds. But that's one tip for having a more successful Magic Kingdom day, is going on one of the days in the middle of the week. All right, tip number 2. This works for us because we travel to the parks with our kids. And one of the ways that we can knock out kind of 2 birds with 1 stone is doing character meals. So my kids are really picky eaters, and a great way to get my kids to eat the very expensive food, no matter where you eat, unless you are packing your own meals and bringing them in, which you can do. You can bring a soft-sided cooler in. You can bring your own snacks. You can bring your own water bottles, which I highly recommend bringing your own water bottles so that you can get them refilled at quick service places. They do have water fountains that you can refill your water bottles to make sure you hydrate. That is really important when you're walking around. It does get really hot, even in the off seasons or when it's cooler in the northern part of the country. It still gets pretty warm down there, so make sure you hydrate. Anyhow, I digress. Going back. So we like to do character meals because then I could be like, I'm not above the bribery, but I tell my kids, Mickey won't come over and say hi to you unless you eat this chicken nugget. And so then they start eating. So I would say that if you need that, get your kids to eat, it's a good way to have a character meal. Character meals also, so we're going to sit down, we're going to eat no matter what. So we like to sit down and eat. It's air conditioned. They've done a really great job at social distancing inside. We dined on the first day at Minnie's Hollywood and Vine when they opened the character meals back up, and everybody was so spaced out. Even though it was a distance character meet and greet, it was still great. April 18th, 2022, hopefully our characters will be back in the restaurants too. They did make the announcement that we'll have the meet and greets out, and you'll be able to hug your characters again, but hopefully it happens in the character meals too. So you get those pictures, your kids get to meet whichever characters you want to see, and you get a break. We like to make our reservations for lunch so that we can pack our mornings full, have a nice sit down break in the middle of the day, and eat our meals, see some characters, and then either get back out or go take a rest back in the room, because of traveling with kids, we can't push them too much. They just will break. So we do need to take those breaks. They might need to go back to the room and rest, but having a character meal for us in the middle of the day has been great. The other option with meals and character meals that I find amazing is when they were doing Be Our Guest at breakfast meals. They used to do the whole breakfast thing, and you could get into the park early. And so what we would do is we would make our reservation for breakfast at like 7:40 at Be Our Guest, and you would get to go in and get at Be Our Guest, and we'd eat our whole meal, and the Magic Kingdom would open, and we'd already be back by Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, and we'd be able to hop on the ride before anybody else was being released from rope drop. So it was fun. One day we actually came out of Be Our Guest, my husband and my daughter hopped on to Seven Dwarfs, and I stood there and just watched the crowd of people come rushing up to Seven Dwarfs, and they got on like the first coaster out, and it was great. So doing that meal, even though it wasn't a character meal, that was kind of nice to be in the park before park open, and we were already like further back. So that's another tip for you. But character meals rolls me right into tip number 3. Mark your calendar. 60 days from the first day of your trip, mark your calendar. If you do not have a Disney travel agent or a travel planner doing this for you, you will need to mark your calendar, set your alarm, and get up at 5:45 a.m. Eastern Time and start doing your dining reservations. That 60 days, you can do dining reservations. So there's 3 different things you can do those 60 days out. You can do dining reservations, you can plan your tours, or extras, like the magical extras that they have, such as like the behind the scenes tours and things like that. And then the other one is you can book the photo packages, and those are really cool, by the way. We did those like the first day that they came out. We just happened to be at the parks on the first day that things happened recently, which has been really cool. So we were at the parks the first day that the Skyliner was running, had no idea about that, got on those the first day. We were at the parks the first day when the characters meals came back during the pandemic, so that was cool. And we will be there on the first day that you get to hug characters again. So we've been to a lot of first things without knowing. We've just planned our trips and they've fallen in that way, so that's been cool. But 60 days out, mark your calendar. And here's the thing. If you are staying on property, you can book your entire stay's worth of dining. So if there's a restaurant, so here's my tip. So if there's a restaurant that you really, really, really have to eat at. So last time we went, the Storybook Dining at Artist Point opened, and that was my like must do. So we made sure that the way that we booked everything was we were there from Tuesday to Sunday, and Saturday night I wanted that because the 60 days before the Tuesday, we could book everything for our whole week. We booked that Storybook Dining first. So we had first dibs because we had that whole week. So our whole week was able to be booked. And so that was my must do that week. So we got that one. So if there's something that you want to do and you're staying on property or at a Good Neighbor hotel, you get these perks as well. You get to book your entire stay. If you're staying off property, not at a Good Neighbor resort, you can book 60 days from each day of your trip. So let's talk about that again. There's 2 different ways you can book out. They're all 60 days. If you're staying on property or a Good Neighbor, 60 days out from your trip, you can book your entire trip worth of dining reservations, worth of any of those magical extras, fireworks parties, tours, things like that. If you are not staying on property or at a Good Neighbor, you have to do that every day, 60 days before. So if you are staying for 5 days, you would have to get up 5 days in a row to book the stuff that's available just for that day, 60 days in advance. I hope that makes sense. So that's a benefit to staying on property, that you get to book your entire stay from the first day. So that is just a thing to mark in your calendar. So if you are booking this yourself, make sure 60 days out and every morning of your trip, the 60 days, you are booking what you want to get. I believe I heard Bibbidi Boppidi Boutique is coming back, which is awesome because my daughter loves that too. We were only able to do that once before the pandemic happened and it closed down. That I believe will also be the 60 days out. So if you're looking for a specific day, make sure you set your alarm and you book those for 60 days. All right, so that was tip number 3. All right, on to tip number 4. So now that characters are coming back in the next trip that we're going to be on, characters will be there, and this will be the first time either of my sons will be able to like really hug characters and get their autographs. So one of the things that we had, which you can get the autograph books and that's fine, but like my husband has autograph books from when he went as a kid, and it's like, okay, this is just their autograph. Like, I don't know how often like you would actually look at that. So being a teacher, an elementary education teacher, in my brain, one of the things that I thought would be cool is I have the book cover to this one. There's a book that has all the characters in it. They have an updated version from this one. But then they can sign on their pages. So there's this book, there's this one, there's an updated version of this one too, because we've had this one for a while. And so you open it up and the characters can sign on their pages so that later your kids can go back and read about the characters, but then see the autograph from the person, which is really cool. So we've had this one that the kids can get autographed. The other one that I really like, and my kids have it somewhere and I can't find it, I will link it in below on the comments or in the description. It is the Who's Who book, and it's not a hardback. So some of my troubles when we traveled with this book that I just have the cover for, this one's really big to fit in my backpack. And so it ended up being a pain because it was a hardback big book to fit in my backpack, and it just became a lot of trouble. This one's hardback, but it's a little bit smaller and would fit in a backpack a little bit better, but it's also very weighty because it is a hardback. The other one is the Who's Who book, and that one is paperback, and it just got updated in 2020 as well. So I believe it has like Forky in it and other characters that they hadn't had before. Of course, it won't have any of the latest characters, but a lot of those aren't out for signing anyhow. I like the paperback version because it's easier to toss in my backpack. Warning to that one though. If you happen to be there on a rainy day, if you happen to be there, it's just because it is a paperback, the corners get bent and everything like that. So just take that into consideration. If you'd rather something that stays a little bit more rigid and will hold up if you're tossing it in, it is heavier, but we typically have a stroller and we'll toss that under. One of these actually happened too. The edges of this got tossed in the stroller and then it drug on the ground, and so that got beat up a little too. So you kind of have to weigh your personal opinion. I am ordering the newest version of the Who's Who character books for them to get signed. These are glossy pages, so when you have this, you need a pen that will write on it. I typically bring a whole bunch of permanent markers with us, and then when we get up to the characters, I already have the page selected with the permanent marker cap attached to it, so that they don't have to go looking for their page. That's what they'll ask you to do. So like Frozone signed this one. So it'll be fun. I'm planning on putting these into the kids' keepsake boxes. But then later, they can go back and read about the characters. So like now that we have these and we'll have an updated version, I'll let them play with these and keep the other character books. But my daughter would go through and she sits at the book and she goes, we saw them and we saw them and we saw them. And so it's just really fun to go back and look. And then now that she's reading, we can go back and read about the different characters, which is cool. My other tip for the character books, you get stickers from a lot of people. So we put them in the front. And then if there's not a character in here, so like Clarabelle Cow wasn't in one of the books. I think she wasn't in here. And so we just had Clarabelle sign the front cover of the book. Or they can sign the back cover. Let me see if anybody's signed in here. Nope, we didn't have anybody sign on this one yet. But it's a good spot if they don't have a picture in here for their kids to get a signature. And then they're still all in the same place. Some people like Olaf who haven't learned how to write, they give you little things to stick into. So we have that from Hollywood Studios. It's like a little card from Olaf that he signs, and you can take that home with you. And so that's fun, and we tape that into the front of our other book. But these autographed books are great. So purchase them in advance. I'll link all of them in the description below. But yeah, these are, I like these better than the autographed books because my kids can go and read about it, and it's fun for them to like see the person and all that kind of stuff. So that's my tip for those. All right, so that was number 4. And my last one is number 5 for today. It's kind of a big one too. It is talking about transportation and rope drop. Since you're probably watching this video, you have kids. And if your kids are like my kids get up so early, even on vacation. We're sleeping in if they are waking up at 6:15 in the morning. So we're up early every day. Even Saturdays. It's, one day we'll get there. I promise. But, we like to rope drop a lot of the parks, because my kids are up, we can get on the transportation, get out, and the anticipation of waiting, I know like it's waiting in line, but it's waiting when you don't have anything else to be doing. So, I do like rope dropping. So rope dropping means you get there before the park opens and you're waiting at the rope. Literally, they're going to drop the rope and you got to go from there to whatever you're looking at, or looking at riding. So last time we rope dropped Magic Kingdom and we rope dropped Space Mountain because my daughter hadn't ridden Space Mountain before. So we were waiting at the rope to get to Space Mountain. So they dropped it and then everybody kind of like filed behind the cast members to get to Space Mountain. A lot of people do rope drop. Seven Dwarfs is a great way to get a lot of stuff done in the morning. So if there's a big ride, like a big ticket ride that you want to ride, get there early and get it done. The one thing about rope dropping is you have to get up, you have to get out, and know that transportation starts running an hour before the posted time of the park. So if you are staying so this is only good if you're staying on property or at a Good Neighbor Resort, because if you are off property and you try and rope drop, there's already going to be people who are staying on property in the parks. So it's not going to really help you to be like a walk-on for a big ride. This last time when we were there for spring break, rides were already jumping, like big rides were already jumping to like an hour wait right when park opened. And so just be aware that rope drop may not be for you if you're staying off property. So rope drop, we typically when we do it, we'll go ride something big like Seven Dwarfs, and then we'll hit some of the other ones that we want to ride. So last time we did Space Mountain, and then we stayed over in Tomorrowland and we did Buzz Lightyear's Space Ranger Spin, and we got teacups done and the carousel. So we got a few things done. We got like 3 rides done in like a half hour. So that is the benefit of rope dropping, that you do get a lot of rides like completed and things checked off your list very early if you are there very early. So we will rope drop Minnie and Mickey's when we go to Hollywood Studios. We will either rope drop Minnie and Mickey's, Runaway Railroad, or Slinky Dog, because Tegan loves Slinky Dog. That's her favorite. So last time we rope dropped Slinky Dog, we were on like the second or third car or coaster that went out, and it was great. So it just depends on what you want to do. So then we typically, once we rope drop, we come back to the resort for like a midday rest. So we'll have our lunch if we do a character meal that day, and then we will go to the hotel, take a break, and then come back. And so like that's also a benefit of staying on property, especially depending on which resorts or which parks you're doing and which resort you're staying at. So like we prefer Caribbean Beach so that we can just hop on the Skyliner and be back. It's a 7-minute ride from Hollywood Studios over to Caribbean Beach. We can get back to our room, rest, and we haven't lost like a whole bunch of a day, even though we did take a midday rest. So depending on how you want to play it, and what your goals are, and if you are a rope dropper or if you stay there until fireworks and then the park closes. We typically don't close down parks because we still have bedtimes to get taken care of. So it's totally up to you. But with being little kids and making sure that we're sticking to as much of our schedule as possible, even though we're in Disney, it works for us. So you kind of have to find what works for you. And those are my tips for people that have kids around our age. Rope drop it because you're up early. Make sure you pay attention to transportation. And I will say, in terms of transportation and what times they open, pay attention to like the Skyliner and things like that. On busy days, they do start to run a little bit earlier. When we were there last time for the Skyliner, it posted, it should have started running at 7:30. They started letting people on at like 7:20. We were taking the bus over to Magic Kindom. Those should have started running at 7:30, and the first bus picked up at 7:15, and there was already a line. So just think about what you want to do. Make sure you're planning depending on how busy it is. There is a lot. There's a lot, but those are my 5 for right now. So I hope you learned something from my 5 tips for right now. And we'll be back for more. See you soon. Thank you so much for watching. I totally appreciate it.